When the dust settled in Silver Creek, 3 men lay dead in the dirt, and the woman holding the smoking gun wasn't supposed to know how to shoot. Lee May never asked to be a bride. She never asked to be hated by a town that saw her face and decided her worth. And she damn sure never planned to save the life of a man who bought her like livestock. But when Land Baron Victor Hale came to burn everything down, she learned something about herself. Survival isn't pretty, and sometimes love grows in the space between bullets. Stay with me until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. The stagecoach lurched to a stop, and Lee May's shoulder slammed against the wooden frame hard enough to bruise. She didn't make a sound. She'd learned young that noise drew attention, and attention got you hurt. Through the dust-caked window, Silver Creek looked exactly like every other dying frontier town she'd passed through. Weathered buildings, tired horses, men with harder eyes than their years deserved. The driver yanked open the door without ceremony. "End of the line, miss." She climbed down, her legs unsteady after 2 days of nothing but rattling wheels and stale bread. The hem of her dress caught on a nail, and she heard the fabric tear. Of course it did. Nothing stayed intact out here. A man stood waiting 20 feet away, hat pulled low, arms crossed. Caleb Rourke. Had to be. The agent in San Francisco had shown her a photograph so faded she could barely make out his features, but the stance was unmistakable, someone who'd rather be anywhere else. She walked toward him, chin up, back straight. Let him see what he paid for. He didn't move. Didn't even acknowledge her until she stopped directly in front of him. "You're late," he said. Stage broke an axle outside of Rollins. Her English came out careful, each word measured. "Not my doing." Didn't say it was. His eyes flicked over her once, quick and clinical, like he was evaluating a horse at auction. "You got belongings?" "One bag." He gestured toward a wagon hitched nearby. "Get it. We're burning daylight." No greeting, no introduction, just orders. Fine. She'd expected worse. The driver tossed her bag down without warning. She caught it, barely, and hauled it to the wagon herself. Caleb made no move to help. When she climbed onto the bench seat, he was already there, reins in hand. They rolled out of town in silence. The land stretched flat and endless in every direction, broken only by the occasional scrub brush or skeletal tree. The sun beat down like a hammer against an anvil, and the wind carried nothing but dust and the smell of dry grass. Lee May had grown up in mountains, in green valleys, where water ran clear and the air tasted like rain. This place felt like the earth had given up. "You know how to cook?" Caleb asked after a solid 10 minutes of nothing. "Yes." "Clean?" "Yes." "Handle livestock?" "I can learn," he grunted. Apparently that was the extent of his conversational abilities. She studied him from the corner of her eye. Broad shoulders, sun-weathered skin, hands that looked like they'd broken things and built things in equal measure. Maybe 35, maybe older, hard to tell with men who worked outside. A scar ran along his jawline, pale and old. He didn't wear a wedding ring, but the tan line suggested he used to. "Why mail order?" she asked. He kept his eyes on the road. "Why leave home?" "I asked first." His mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "Needed help. Town women won't come near my place." "Why not?" "They talk too much." He shot her a look. "You talk too much?" "Not usually." "Good." The ranch appeared after another hour. A low house, a barn that had seen better years, a corral with 3 horses standing in the shade of a cottonwood. It wasn't much, but it was kept. Fences mended, roof intact, no garbage piled in corners. A man who lived here cared, even if he didn't show it. Caleb pulled the wagon up to the house and set the brake. "You'll take the back room. Sheets are clean. Outhouse is behind the barn. Water pump is by the kitchen door. You'll need to prime it first thing every morning." "Where will you sleep?" "Same place I always do." He climbed down, grabbed her bag, and carried it inside without waiting for her to follow. The house was sparse. A table, 2 chairs, a wood stove, shelves lined with tins and jars. Everything functional, nothing decorative. The back room held a narrow bed, a dresser with 3 drawers, and a window that looked out toward the open range. He set her bag on the bed. "Supper's at sundown, he said. I'm not particular about what, long as there's enough of it. Then he left. Li Mei stood in the doorway, listening to his boots cross the main room and disappear outside. She waited until she heard the barn door creak open before she let herself sit down on the bed. The mattress was thin but clean, like he'd said. She ran her hand over the blanket, wool, well-worn, patched in 2 places. Someone had cared for it. Maybe a wife who wasn't here anymore. Maybe just a man who didn't like waste. She unpacked slowly. 3 dresses, 2 shawls, undergarments, a wooden comb, a small mirror, and a knife her grandmother had given her before she left. Not much to show for 26 years of living, but it was hers. By the time she finished, the sun was starting its descent. She went to the kitchen and took stock. Flour, salt, dried beans, a slab of bacon wrapped in cloth, eggs in a basket by the window, onions hanging from a rafter. Coffee in a tin that smelled strong enough to wake the dead. She built a fire in the stove, set water to boil, and started chopping. Her hands moved on muscle memory. This much she knew how to do. Food was a language that didn't care what country you came from. When Caleb came back inside an hour later, she had bacon frying, beans simmering, and biscuits browning in the oven. He stopped in the doorway, stared. "You said sundown," she said without turning around. "I did." He washed his hands in the basin, dried them on a rag that had seen better days, and sat down at the table. She served him a plate, generous portions, nothing fancy, and set it in front of him along with a cup of coffee. He ate without comment. Not fast, not slow, just methodical. When he finished, he pushed the plate back and drained the last of his coffee. "It's good," he said. "Thank you." "You'll do fine here." She almost laughed. Fine, as if fine was the goal, as if she'd crossed an ocean and half a continent to be fine. But she nodded, because what else was there to say? That night she lay in the narrow bed and listened to the sounds of a place that wasn't home. Wind against the walls, horses shifting in the corral. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called out, and another answered. She thought about San Francisco, about the cramped boarding house where she'd worked herself sick for 2 years saving money she'd never see again. About the agent who'd smiled too wide and promised her a better life if she just signed the contract. About the women who'd whispered behind her back that no white man would want her unless he was desperate. Maybe Caleb was desperate. Maybe she was too. Didn't matter now. She closed her eyes and tried to sleep. The next 3 days passed in a rhythm. Wake before dawn, start the fire, make coffee, cook breakfast, clean, mend, cook again, sleep. Caleb worked from sunup to sundown, coming in only for meals. He spoke in fragments. Need more wood. Fences down in the south pasture. Rain coming tomorrow. She learned to read him through what he didn't say. On the 4th morning, riders appeared on the horizon. Li Mei saw them first. She'd been hanging laundry when the movement caught her eye. 4 men on horseback, moving fast, dust trailing behind them like a warning. She dropped the sheet back into the basket and walked quickly to the barn. Caleb was inside, repairing a saddle. "Riders coming?" she said. He looked up. "How many?" "4." He set the saddle aside and reached for the rifle leaning against the wall. "Stay in the house." "Who are they?" "Trouble." He checked the rifle's action, then walked past her toward the yard. She didn't go to the house. She stood in the barn doorway and watched. The riders slowed as they approached, fanning out in a loose line. The man in the center sat taller than the others, shoulders squared, hat pristine despite the dust. His horse was the kind you didn't buy on a ranch hand's wages. Caleb stood in the middle of the yard, rifle held casual but ready. The tall man smiled. "Caleb Rourke, been a while." "Not long enough, Hale." So this was Victor Hale. Li Mei had heard the name twice in town while waiting for the stage. Once from a shopkeeper who'd refused to sell her thread, and once from a woman who'd spat near her feet and muttered something about foreigners bringing bad luck. Both times, Hale's name had come up like a curse. "Now, that's no way to greet neighbors," Hale said. His voice carried the smooth edges of education mixed with something harder underneath. "Especially when I've come all this way to make you an offer. Don't need your offers. Haven't heard it yet." "Don't need to." Hale's smile stayed put, but his eyes went cold. You're sitting on land that's worth more than you know. I'm prepared to pay you fair price, more than fair, and you can move on to someplace easier, someplace that doesn't require so much work. Not interested. You should be. Hale leaned forward in his saddle. This valley's changing, Caleb. Progress doesn't wait for stubborn men. Then progress can go around. One of the other riders shifted, hand drifting toward his hip. Caleb's rifle came up an inch. Not pointing, just acknowledging. Hale raised a hand and the rider froze. Easy now. We're all civilized here. He straightened. I'll give you a week to think it over. After that, my patience runs thin. Don't need a week. Take it anyway. Hale's gaze shifted past Caleb, landing on Li Mei. His expression changed, something between surprise and disdain. I see you've acquired help. Caleb's jaw tightened. My business, not yours. Everything in this valley is my business. Hale tipped his hat, mockery clear in the gesture. Ma'am. She didn't respond, just met his eyes and held them until he looked away first. The riders turned and left the way they came, slow and deliberate. Caleb didn't move until they disappeared over the rise. Then he lowered the rifle and let out a breath. That's Victor Hale, he said, as if she hadn't figured it out. Owns half the valley, wants the other half. Been buying up land for 2 years. Sometimes he asks nice, sometimes he doesn't. And you? I don't sell. Why not? He looked at her, and for the first time since she'd arrived, something like emotion crossed his face. Because it's mine. She understood that. Understood it better than he probably knew. That night, she couldn't sleep. She lay in bed listening to the house settle, the wind push against the shutters, the distant sound of something, coyote maybe, or something worse, moving through the dark. Around midnight, she heard footsteps in the main room. She rose quietly, pulled her shawl around her shoulders, and cracked the door open. Caleb sat at the table, a lantern burning low beside him. He had his knife out, running a whetstone along the blade in long, steady strokes. The sound was rhythmic, almost meditative. She stepped out. He didn't look up. Can't sleep? He asked. No, me neither. She pulled out the other chair and sat down. For a while, neither of them spoke. Just the rasp of stone on steel, over and over. He'll come back, she said finally. I know. And he won't ask next time. Caleb stopped sharpening, set the knife down. Probably not. Then why stay? He was quiet for a long moment, staring at the blade like it held answers. My wife and I built this place, he said. Took us 5 years. She died the winter after we finished the house. Fever. Nothing I could do. He picked up the knife again, turned it over in his hands. I stayed because leaving felt like forgetting. Li Mei nodded. She knew about staying in places that hurt. You got people back home? He asked. Not anymore. They dead? Some. The rest might as well be. She pulled the shawl tighter. My father sold me to a merchant when I was 14. The merchant sold me to a man in San Francisco who promised work. The work was a laundry, and the pay was nothing. I saved for 2 years and bought my way out. The agent said marriage was better than working myself to death in steam and lie. Caleb looked at her, really looked, maybe for the first time. You regret it? Not yet. She met his eyes. You? His mouth twitched. Ask me in a week. She almost smiled. Hale's gonna push, she said. Men like him always do. I can handle Hale. Can you? He didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was quieter. I don't know. Honesty. She hadn't expected that. Then we figure it out, she said. He frowned. We? You paid for a wife. Wife means partner. Partners figure things out together. For the first time since she'd arrived, Caleb Rourke looked surprised. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. She stood. But I will. She went back to her room and closed the door before he could argue. The next morning, Caleb started teaching her to shoot. He set up bottles on the fence posts and handed her an old revolver, worn but functional. You ever held a gun before? No. Then pay attention. He showed her how to load it, how to aim, how to breathe before pulling the trigger. Don't jerk, don't rush. Squeeze slow and let the shot surprise you. She missed the first 5 times. The 6th shot clipped the edge of a bottle. The 7th shattered it clean. Caleb raised an eyebrow. You sure you haven't done this before? I'm sure. I'm just good at learning. Apparently, by the end of the week, she could hit 4 out of 6 bottles without thinking too hard about it. Caleb watched her practice with an expression she couldn't quite read, something between respect and worry. You're a quick study, he said. I had good teachers before. Different lessons. She reloaded the cylinder. My grandmother taught me to watch before acting. Said most people lose because they move too fast. Smart woman. She was. What happened to her? Cholera. When I was 12. Li Mei aimed, fired. Another bottle exploded. She made me promise not to die quiet. Caleb nodded slowly. I don't think you will. They worked the ranch together after that, mending fences, feeding livestock, hauling water. She learned the rhythms of the place, the way the land moved and breathed. Caleb didn't talk much, but he taught her through doing. How to read weather in the color of the sky. How to tell when a horse was favoring a leg. How to stretch food through the lean months. And in return, she taught him things he didn't know he needed. Patience when a task went wrong. Precision in small gestures that saved time later. The value of silence that wasn't empty. One evening, 2 weeks after Hale's visit, they sat on the porch after supper. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that looked like fire. You think he forgot about us? Li Mei asked. No. Then when? Soon. Caleb leaned back against the post, eyes on the horizon. Men like Hale don't forget. They just wait until you think they did. So we wait too. Yeah. She considered that. I'm not good at waiting. Me neither. He glanced at her. But I'm better at it with company. It wasn't a declaration, wasn't even close, but it was something. 3 days later, smoke rose from the neighboring ranch. They saw it from the south pasture, thick, black, angry smoke billowing up against the pale morning sky. Caleb froze, then swore under his breath. That's the Morrison place, he said. Fire? Not by accident. He was already moving, heading back toward the house at a run. Li Mei followed. By the time they got there, another column of smoke had appeared to the west, then another to the north. Caleb grabbed his rifle and checked the loads. He's burning them out. How many families? At least 3 that I can see. His hands moved fast, efficient. Maybe more. Are you going to help them? He stopped, looked at her. If I leave, he might come here. Then I stay. Li Mei. I can shoot. You taught me. She went to the house and came back with the revolver. I stay. You go. We both do what we're good at. He hesitated, and she could see the war happening behind his eyes. Instinct to protect versus the knowledge that people were burning. Go, she said. I'll be fine. He didn't look convinced, but he mounted his horse anyway. Bar the door. Don't open it for anyone but me. If someone tries to get in, you shoot first and ask questions after. I know. He rode off toward the smoke, and Li Mei went back inside. She barred the door like he'd said, checked the revolver twice, and positioned herself by the window where she could see the road. Then she waited. An hour passed, then 2. The sun climbed higher, turning the day hot and still. She watched the horizon, watched the smoke, watched for movement that didn't belong. Around midday, she heard hoofbeats. Not Caleb, too many horses coming too fast. She moved away from the window and crouched behind the table, revolver steady in both hands. The riders pulled up outside. Boots hit the ground. Voices. Nobody home. Check the barn. Rourke probably ran like the others. A fist pounded on the door. Anyone in there? She stayed silent. More pounding. Then the sound of something heavy hitting wood. They were trying to break it down. Li Mei moved to the side of the door, raised the revolver, and waited. The door splintered, once, twice. On the third hit, the bar cracked and the door swung open. A man stepped inside, silhouetted against the daylight. Big, armed, confident. She shot him in the leg. He went down screaming, and the man behind him froze. "Next one's higher," she said. The second man raised his hands and backed out slowly. Jesus Christ, Hale didn't say, "Tell Hale I'm not leaving." She kept the gun trained on him. "And take your friend with you." They dragged the wounded man out, cursing and stumbling. She heard them mount up and ride off, fast and messy. Only then did she lower the gun. Her hands were shaking. She set the revolver on the table and sat down hard, breathing through the adrenaline. She'd shot a man. Actually shot him. Heard him scream, saw him fall. She should feel guilty. Should feel something other than this cold, clear certainty that she'd do it again if she had to. Caleb came back 2 hours later, his face grim and his clothes smelling like smoke. He stopped dead when he saw the broken door. "They came," she said. His eyes went sharp. "How many?" "2. I shot one in the leg. They left." He stared at her. "You shot... You told me to shoot first." She met his gaze. "So I did." For a long moment, he didn't say anything. Then he crossed the room, pulled her to her feet, and wrapped his arms around her. She froze, startled. Then, slowly, she let herself lean into it. "You're okay," he said, and it wasn't a question. "I'm okay." He pulled back, hands on her shoulders. "I shouldn't have left you. You did what you had to. So did I." Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe, or the beginning of it. He nodded. "We need to fix that door." "I know." They worked together as the sun set, hammering boards into place, reinforcing what had broken. It wasn't pretty, but it held. That night, Caleb didn't go to his room. He sat at the table, rifle across his lap, and kept watch. Li Mei sat across from him. "You don't have to stay up," he said. "Neither do you." "Someone should." "Then we both will." He looked at her, and this time she saw it clearly. The walls coming down, brick by brick. Not gone. Not yet. But starting to crumble. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For not running." She thought about that. About all the times she could have run, should have run, and didn't. "I'm done running," she said. And she meant it. Outside, the wind picked up, carrying the smell of ash and burnt wood. Somewhere in the valley, families were fleeing. Land was being taken. Power was consolidating. But in this house, with its broken door and scarred table, 2 people who'd started as strangers sat together in the lamplight, and neither of them was alone anymore. The Morrison family left before dawn. Li Mei watched from the window as their wagon rolled past, loaded with whatever they could salvage, furniture, clothing, children huddled under blankets against the cold. Mrs. Morrison's face was blank, empty of everything except exhaustion. Her husband drove without looking back. Caleb stood in the doorway, coffee growing cold in his hand. "That's 5 families now," he said. "How many are left?" 3. Maybe 4 if you count old Hendricks, but he's half blind and stubborn as a mule. Like you. He didn't smile. "Yeah, like me." The town had changed in the 2 weeks since the burnings started. When Li Mei went to buy supplies, the streets felt different, quieter, meaner. People walked with their heads down. Shops closed early. The saloon that used to spill noise into the evening sat dark by sundown. And everywhere she went, she felt eyes on her. The stares weren't new. She'd gotten used to those the first day she'd arrived. Curiosity mixed with contempt, the kind of look that made her feel like dirt someone tracked inside. But now the stares came with whispers, with words she wasn't supposed to understand but did. Bad luck. Brought the devil with her. Hale never pushed this hard before she showed up. At the general store, Mrs. Patterson refused to serve her, just stood behind the counter with her arms crossed and her mouth set in a hard line. "We don't serve your kind," she said. Li Mei set the list on the counter. "I have money. Don't care. Get out. I need flour, salt, coffee." I said get out. Caleb, who'd been looking at rope near the back, came forward. His footsteps were heavy, deliberate. "You've got a problem, Ruth?" But Mrs. Patterson's face tightened. Your problem, Caleb, not mine. She's my wife. That makes her your neighbor. Now sell her what she needs or I'll take my business to Rollins. Rollins is a 2-day ride. Then I guess I'll be riding. They stared at each other, and Lee May could feel the weight of old history in the air, something she wasn't part of, something that went back years. Finally, Mrs. Patterson exhaled through her nose and started pulling items off the shelves. She slammed each one down on the counter hard enough to rattle the jars. Flour, salt, coffee, that'll be $4. It was $3 last week, Caleb said. Prices went up. Convenient. Take it or leave it. He paid. They left without another word. Outside, Lee May walked fast, keeping her eyes forward. Caleb matched her pace. You don't have to come with me, she said. Yeah, I do. I can handle them. I know you can. Doesn't mean you should have to. She stopped walking and turned to face him. They blame me. You know that, right? They think Hale's doing this because of me. Hale's doing this because he's a bastard. Has nothing to do with you. Try telling them that. A man walked past, close enough that his shoulder brushed hers. He didn't apologize, just kept walking. Caleb's hand went to her elbow, steadying her. Come on, let's go home. Home? Funny how that word had started to mean something. They loaded the supplies into the wagon and headed back. The ride was quiet until they were clear of town. Thank you, she said. For what? For standing up for me in there. He shrugged. She was wrong. She wasn't the only one. Then they're all wrong. He glanced at her. You're the only person in this valley who hasn't run yet. That counts for something. Or it makes me stupid. Maybe, but it's the good kind of stupid. She almost laughed. Almost. When they got back to the ranch, a horse was tied to the fence, a dappled gray mare Lee May didn't recognize. Caleb's hand went to his rifle. Stay behind me! They approached the house carefully. The door was closed. Nothing looked disturbed, but someone was here. A voice called out from the porch. Easy, Rourke, I'm not armed. A man stepped into view, late 50s, weathered face, wearing a marshal's badge that had seen better days. His hands were raised, empty. Caleb relaxed, but only slightly. Marshal Grady, little far from home, aren't you? Could say the same about you. Grady lowered his hands. Mind if we talk inside? Depends on what you're here to talk about. Victor Hale, the burnings, the fact that half this valley is turning into a ghost town. Grady's eyes shifted to Lee May. And the fact that you're apparently the only rancher left who hasn't taken his offer. They went inside. Lee May put coffee on while the men sat at the table. She didn't leave the room. If this concerned Caleb, it concerned her. Grady accepted the coffee with a nod of thanks. I'll get to the point. Hale's got the governor's ear. He's been spreading stories about progress, about modernizing the territory, about bringing in the railroad. Makes him look like a visionary instead of what he is. Which is a thief, Caleb said. A smart thief, smart enough to stay just inside the law. Grady drank his coffee, winced at the heat. The burnings? He's got alibis for every single one. Claims it's accidents, bad luck, people getting careless with lanterns and cook fires. That's horseshit. I know it, you know it, but I can't prove it. Grady set the cup down. And without proof, my hands are tied. So why are you here? Because I need you to be careful. Hale's escalating. He wants this valley, and he's not going to stop until he gets it. Grady's gaze was steady. You should take his offer, Caleb. Take the money and leave while you still can. Caleb's jaw set. No. Don't be stubborn. I said no. Your wife died here. You really want to join her? The words hung in the air like smoke. Lee May saw Caleb's hands tighten on the table, knuckles going white. Get out, Caleb said quietly. Grady sighed. I'm trying to help you. By telling me to run? That's not help. It's survival. Same thing I've been doing my whole life. Caleb stood. I'm done running. Doors that way. Grady looked at Lee May. Talk sense into him. He makes his own choices, she said. So do you. And you're choosing to stay with a man who's going to get himself killed. Grady stood, shaking his head. Your funeral." He left. They listened to his horse ride off. Caleb sat back down, staring at his hands. "He's right, you know," Li Mei said. "About what?" "About Hale escalating. About this getting worse." "I know." "Then why stay?" He was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough. "Because if I leave, he wins. And if he wins here, he'll do it somewhere else. And someone else will lose their land, their home, everything they built." He looked up at her. "I can't stop that everywhere, but maybe I can stop it here. You can't fight him alone." "I'm not alone." The weight of that statement settled between them. Li Mei felt it in her chest. Responsibility, partnership, something she hadn't expected when she'd stepped off that stagecoach. "No," she said. "You're not." That night, neither of them slept well. Li Mei heard Caleb moving around the house, checking windows, testing the door. She got up once and found him standing by the front window, rifle in hand, watching the darkness. "You should rest," she said. "Can't." She stood next to him. Outside, the moon was nearly full, casting everything in silver light. The land looked peaceful, deceptive. "Tell me about your wife," she said. He didn't answer right away. She thought maybe he wouldn't. Then, "Her name was Sarah. We met in Missouri. She was a school teacher. I was working as a ranch hand. She had this way of making everything seem possible, you know, like the world wasn't as hard as it looked." He shifted the rifle to his other hand. "We came out here because she wanted space, wanted to build something that was ours, so we did." "She sounds strong." She was. His voice cracked slightly. Until she wasn't. Li Mei understood. Strength didn't always protect you. Sometimes it just made the fall hurt worse. "Do you miss her?" "Every day." He glanced at her. "Does that bother you?" "No. It would bother me if you didn't." He nodded slowly. "You're different than I expected." "What did you expect?" "Someone quiet. Someone who needed taking care of." He almost smiled. "You're not quiet." "I can be." "But you choose not to be. That's different." She thought about that. About all the time she'd stayed silent because silence was safer. About the choice to speak, to act, to stand instead of bend. "I spent a long time being what other people needed," she said. "I'm tired of it." "Good. Don't stop." They stood together by the window until the sky started to lighten. Then they made coffee and started another day. A week later, Hendrick's barn burned. This time, Li Mei and Caleb rode out together. They found the old man sitting on a stump, watching the last of the flames die down. His face was blank, like he'd used up all his emotion and had nothing left. "They came at night," he said when they approached. "4 men, told me to leave by morning or next time it'd be the house." "You get a look at them?" Caleb asked. "Too dark, too fast." Hendricks coughed, and the sound rattled in his chest. "I'm 83 years old. I got no fight left in me." "Where will you go?" "Got a daughter in Colorado. Haven't seen her in 15 years, but she writes sometimes." He stood, joints creaking. "Guess I'll find out if she meant it when she said I was welcome." They helped him pack what little he wanted to take. By noon, he was gone. That left 3 ranches. Caleb's, the O'Connells to the east, and the Sharp place to the north. 2 days later, the O'Connells left. Li Mei saw Mrs. O'Connell in town, buying supplies for the road. She looked like she hadn't slept in a week. "We can't do it anymore," she said when Li Mei approached. "My husband's scared. My kids are scared. I'm scared." She grabbed Li Mei's hand. "You should leave too, before it's too late." "I can't." "Why not?" Li Mei didn't have a good answer, or maybe she did, and it was just too complicated to explain. "Because someone has to stay." Mrs. O'Connell's eyes filled with tears. "That's what my husband said, right up until they shot our dog and left it on the porch." She squeezed Li Mei's hand. "Please, don't be stupid brave, just be alive." They left that afternoon. That night, Li Mei and Caleb sat on the porch and watched the sunset. The valley felt emptier, quieter, like the land itself was holding its breath. "We're the last ones," Caleb said. "Us and the Sharps." "Tom Sharp's already packing. Saw him in town yesterday. He just hasn't admitted it yet." "So just us then?" "Yeah." He looked at her. "You can still leave, you know. I'd understand." "Would you?" "No, but I'd tell you I did." She smiled despite herself. "I'm not leaving." "Why not?" She thought about that, really thought about it. About the contract she'd signed, the money that had changed hands, the transactional nature of how they'd started. None of that mattered anymore. "Because this is the first place I've been where someone saw me as more than what they could use me for." She met his eyes. "You taught me to shoot. You stood up for me in town. You trusted me to defend this place when you left. That means something. It means I'm practical. It means you see me as an equal. Do you know how rare that is?" He didn't answer, but something in his expression shifted, a softness she hadn't seen before. "I see you," he said quietly. "More than you know." The words settled between them, heavy and warm. Li Mei felt her chest tighten, felt something crack open that she'd kept locked for years. Before she could respond, horses thundered in the distance. They were on their feet in seconds, Caleb grabbing his rifle, Li Mei running for the revolver. But the horses weren't coming toward them. They were heading north, toward the Sharp place. "Son of a bitch," Caleb muttered. He was already moving toward the barn. "Stay here." "No." "Li Mei, I'm coming with you." He stopped, turned. "It's going to be bad. Then you'll need help." They rode hard, the horses' hooves pounding against the dry ground. Smoke was already rising by the time they got close, thick and black, lit from below by flames that reached toward the sky. The Sharp house was burning. Tom Sharp stood in the yard with a shotgun, blood running down his face, firing at riders who circled like wolves. His wife was on the ground, not moving. Two kids, couldn't have been older than 10, huddled behind an overturned wagon. Caleb didn't hesitate. He rode straight into the chaos, rifle up, and fired. One rider went down, then another. Li Mei followed, revolver in hand, heart hammering so hard she could hear it in her ears. She aimed, fired, missed, aimed again, fired, and saw a man grab his shoulder and wheel his horse around. The riders scattered, not because they were beaten, but because they'd done what they came to do. The house was lost. Caleb jumped off his horse and ran to Mrs. Sharp. Li Mei went to the kids. "Are you hurt?" she asked. The boy shook his head, but his sister was crying too hard to answer. Li Mei pulled them close, shielding them from the sight of their burning home. Tom Sharp dropped to his knees next to his wife. Caleb checked for a pulse, then looked up and shook his head. The sound Tom made wasn't human. It was something raw and broken, something that came from a place beyond words. Li Mei held the children tighter. By the time the fire burned itself out, there was nothing left but ash and stone. They buried Mrs. Sharp at dawn, and Tom Sharp left with his kids before the sun was fully up. He didn't say goodbye, just looked at Caleb once, hollow-eyed and empty, and drove away. They were alone now, the last ranch standing. The ride back was silent. When they got home, Caleb put the horses away and went straight to the house. Li Mei followed. He poured himself whiskey from a bottle she hadn't known he had, drank it in one swallow, poured another. "Caleb, she was alive when we got there," he said. "Did you see that? She was alive, and I couldn't—" His voice broke. "I couldn't do anything. There was nothing to do. There's always something." He slammed the glass down. "I should have gotten there faster. Should have—" "Stop." She grabbed his arm. "You did everything you could. It wasn't enough. It never is, but you tried. That's more than most people." He stared at her, and she saw the weight of it in his eyes. All the people he'd tried to help, all the ones he couldn't save. His wife, Mrs. Sharp. How many others? "I'm tired," he said quietly. "I know. I don't know how much more I can—" "Then we rest. Tonight, we rest. Tomorrow, we figure out what comes next." He nodded, but she could see he didn't believe her, could see he was carrying something too heavy to put down. She led him to the table, made him sit, and poured him coffee instead of more whiskey. Then she sat across from him and waited. After a while, he spoke. They're going to come for us next. I know. And when they do, it won't be just property they're after. Hale's tired of waiting. He'll send everyone he's got. So what do we do? I don't know. He rubbed his face. In a fair fight, we'd lose. We're 2 people against, what, a dozen? More? Then we don't fight fair. He looked up. What? You heard me? We don't fight fair. We're smarter. We plan. We use the land, the ranch, everything we know against them. She leaned forward. You've lived here for years. You know every inch of this place. They don't. You're talking about an ambush. I'm talking about survival. He considered that. She watched him think through it, the logistics, the risks, the morality of fighting dirty. It might not be enough, he said. It might not, but it's better than waiting for them to burn us out. Slowly, he nodded. All right, we plan. They spent the next 3 days preparing. Caleb showed her every approach to the ranch, where the land dipped, where the rocks gave cover, where someone on horseback would be exposed. They moved supplies, repositioned fences, created choke points, and fallback positions. Li Mei proved better at strategy than either of them expected. She saw patterns Caleb missed, thought 3 moves ahead, anticipated mistakes before they happened. Where'd you learn this? He asked. My grandmother. She survived 3 wars and a famine. She used to say fighting was easy. Staying alive was the hard part. Smart woman. The smartest. They practiced shooting until Li Mei could hit a moving target. Caleb taught her to reload fast, to shoot from cover, to conserve ammunition. In return, she taught him patience, how to wait for the right moment instead of forcing it. On the 4th night, they sat on the porch, tired and sore, but ready. You scared? Caleb asked. Yes, me too. Good, scared keeps you alive. He smiled, a real smile, the first she'd seen in days. When this is over, don't. Don't what? Don't talk about after. Not yet. She looked at him. After only matters if we survive. So let's survive first. He reached across the space between them and took her hand. His palm was calloused, warm, steady. Together, he said. Together. They sat like that until the stars came out, hands linked. 2 people who'd started as strangers and become something more. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And when the darkness came, they'd be ready. Part 3 lưu ý, viết 6.000 đến 6.500 từ liên kết liền mạch với các phần trước trong câu chuyện và hội thoại tạo thành một câu chuyện liền mạch khi ghép lại. Mỗi phần liền mạch với phần trước không giới thiệu lại câu chuyện ở đầu phần mới. Liên kết các phần của câu chuyện một cách liền mạch, sử dụng câu chuyện tiếp giữa các phần, duy trì chủ đề, tránh ngắt quãng đột ngột, không sử dụng gạch đầu dòng hoặc tiêu đề phụ, phong cách kể chuyện Mỹ, Hoa Kỳ, giống văn giàu cảm xúc, kể theo ngôi thứ 3, giữ đồ kịch tính không viết lan man, nhân vật không hoàn hảo, hội thoại tự nhiên, tránh ngôn ngữ văn chương, sáo rơi và cụm từ AI điển hình. Viết như nhà văn chuyên nghiệp, không như AI cố gắng nghe sang. Có yếu tố con người, cấm miêu tả qua mượt mà và hoàn hảo, kết thúc phần không giới thiệu phần sau. Câu chuyện không nhắc đến Chúa. Lưu ý trả lời trong mục tin nhắn không nhảy sang document, chỉ đần bắt buộc, không được xuất hiện trong nội dung truyền. Đây là một câu chuyện điện ảnh hoàn toàn hư cấu được tạo ra chỉ nhằm mục đích giải trí, không đề cập hay ngụ ý rằng nó dựa trên sự kiện có thật, người thật hoặc câu chuyện có thật, không sử dụng các cụm từ như dựa trên một câu chuyện có thật, theo ghi chép hoặc bất cứ điều gì tương tự. Tất cả các nhân vật, địa điểm, tổ chức và sự kiện phải hoàn toàn hư cấu. They came at dawn on the 5th day. Li Mei saw the dust first, a long line of it rising against the pink sky, moving fast from the east. She'd been up since before first light, couldn't sleep, had spent the hours checking ammunition and water supplies and telling herself the knot in her stomach was just hunger. It wasn't hunger. Caleb, she called. He was already coming out of the barn, rifle in hand. He looked at the dust cloud, and his face went hard. How many? She asked. Too many, he counted silently. 8, maybe 10. Hale? Probably. He turned to her. Last chance to run. Stop asking me that. I mean it. Once they get here. I said stop. She checked her revolver, made sure it was loaded. We do this together or not at all. He looked at her for a long moment, something complicated moving behind his eyes. Then he nodded once, sharp and final. They took their positions, Caleb behind the water trough near the house, Limay in the barn loft with a clear view of the approach. They'd practiced this, talked through every scenario, but now that it was real, everything felt different, sharper, more permanent. The riders slowed as they got closer, spreading out in a loose line. Limay counted 9 men, all armed. Victor Hale rode in the center on his pristine horse, looking like he was heading to a business meeting instead of a fight. They stopped 30 yards out, close enough to talk, far enough to have room to maneuver. Hale removed his hat and wiped his brow with a handkerchief. Caleb Rourke, I'd say it's a pleasure, but we both know that'd be a lie. Caleb stood slowly, rifle visible but not aimed. Turn around, Hale. Nothing for you here. I disagree. I count 1 house, 1 barn, 200 acres of prime grazing land, and access to the creek that runs through the valley. Hale folded his handkerchief precisely. That's quite a lot, actually. Not for sale. I'm not offering to buy. Not anymore. Hale's smile was thin and cold. I'm offering you a choice. Leave now with your life, or stay and lose everything. I've heard that speech before. Didn't take it then, won't take it now. Then you're a fool. Hale looked past Caleb toward the house. Where's that little bride of yours, hiding inside? Limay's finger tightened on the trigger. Not yet. Wait. She's got nothing to do with this, Caleb said. Everything has to do with everything, Caleb. That's how the world works. Hale put his hat back on. Last chance. Walk away. Go to hell. Hale sighed like he was disappointed. I was hoping you'd see reason. Gentlemen? The men on either side of him reached for their guns. Caleb dropped behind the trough and fired. One rider went down, his horse rearing and screaming. Limay squeezed off 2 shots from the loft. The first went wide. The second caught a man in the shoulder and spun him sideways. Chaos erupted. Horses scattered, men dove for cover. Gunfire cracked like thunder in the still morning air. Limay ducked as bullets punched through the barn wall, splinters exploding around her. She moved to a different position, fired again, saw another man fall. Below, Caleb was pinned down, 3 men circling toward him from different angles. Limay shot at the nearest one, missed, shot again, and saw him stumble. It gave Caleb enough time to roll behind a fence post and return fire. One of the riders charged the barn. Limay heard hoofbeats pounding closer. Then the man was inside, dismounting and heading for the ladder. She aimed down through the gap in the floorboards and fired. The man dropped. Her hands were shaking. She could smell gunpowder and blood and her own fear. More shots from outside. A bullet zinged past her head so close she felt the air move. She pressed herself flat against the loft floor, breathing hard, trying to think. They'd planned for this, but plans fell apart fast when people started dying. She heard Caleb shout something she couldn't make out over the gunfire. Then an explosion. Someone had thrown something that shattered against the house. Not a bomb, a bottle. Fire bloomed along the porch, hungry and orange. They were burning them out. Limay scrambled to the loft window and fired at the man who'd thrown it. She hit him in the leg and he went down cursing. But another rider was already moving toward the house with another bottle. She shot at him, missed, aimed again. The ladder shook. Someone was climbing up. She spun around, revolver pointed at the opening. A man's head appeared, young, maybe 20, with wild eyes and a gun in his hand. He saw her and hesitated, just for a second, like he wasn't expecting to find a woman up here. That second cost him. Limay shot him in the chest and he fell backwards off the ladder, hitting the ground with a sound that would haunt her later. No time to think about it. She reloaded with shaking hands, fumbled a bullet, picked it up, got it in the cylinder. Outside, the fire was spreading along the porch. Smoke was starting to curl up through the barn. Caleb was still pinned down, and now he was coughing. She could see him through the smoke, crouched behind the trough, reloading. 3 men were closing in on him from different angles, moving careful and coordinated. She had to help him, had to get down, get outside. A hand grabbed her ankle. She screamed and kicked hard, felt her boot connect with something solid. The grip loosened and she scrambled away, turning to see another man climbing up through the smoke. Big, armed, grinning like he thought this was funny. Well, well, he said. The little China doll knows how to shoot. She aimed at him. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. Get back. Or what? You gonna kill me like you killed Tommy? He kept climbing. That was my brother, you bitch. She pulled the trigger. Click. Empty. The man's grin widened. He lunged across the loft and grabbed her wrist, twisting until she dropped the gun. She fought, scratched at his eyes, drove her knee toward his groin, bit his hand when it came near her face. He backhanded her, and her vision went white with pain. Should have stayed in whatever hole you crawled out of, he snarled. She tasted blood. Her head was ringing. He had her pinned against the wall, one hand around her throat, squeezing. Her grandmother's voice in her head. Watch before acting. Use what they don't expect. She stopped struggling, went limp, let her eyes flutter closed. His grip loosened slightly. That's right, just... She drove her thumb into his eye socket as hard as she could. He howled and jerked back, and she rolled away, gasping for air. Her revolver was 3 feet away. She dove for it, grabbed it, spun around. He was on her again, heavier and stronger and furious. They went down in a tangle, rolling across the loft floor. Her hand was trapped under her body, the gun useless. His fist connected with her ribs, and something cracked. Pain exploded through her chest. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, just animal panic and the knowledge that if she stopped fighting, she'd die. She had 1 bullet left. She'd saved it, kept one in reserve like Caleb taught her. She twisted her wrist, managed to angle the barrel upward, pressed it against the man's stomach, and fired. He made a sound like air leaving a balloon and went heavy on top of her. She shoved him off, rolled away, and lay on the loft floor coughing and crying and trying to breathe through what might be broken ribs. Smoke was thicker now. The barn was burning. She crawled to the edge of the loft and looked down. 2 bodies on the ground floor, the fire spreading up the walls. No way down except the ladder, and the ladder was already starting to catch. Outside, gunfire had slowed. Either people were dead or out of ammunition. She couldn't see Caleb anymore, just smoke and flame and dust. She had to move, had to get out. The ladder creaked when she put her weight on it. She climbed down fast, ignoring the pain in her ribs, the heat from the flames. 1 rung broke under her foot, and she dropped the last 6 feet, landing hard and wrong. Her ankle screamed, but she forced herself up. The barn door was blocked by fire. She looked around. There, the back door, smaller, half hidden behind hay bales. She ran for it, threw her shoulder against it. It didn't budge. She tried again, harder, and this time it gave. She stumbled out into daylight and smoke and the acrid smell of gunpowder. Caleb was on the ground. Not dead. She could see him moving, trying to push himself up, but there was blood on his shirt, spreading dark across his left shoulder. 3 men were standing over him, guns drawn. Victor Hale sat on his horse 20 feet away, watching. Li Mei's revolver was empty. She had no ammunition left, no weapon, no plan, just rage and fear and the absolute certainty that she couldn't let this happen. She ran. Not away. Toward. The nearest man heard her coming and turned, but she was already moving, already inside his guard. She grabbed a piece of broken fence post from the ground and swung it like a club. It connected with his knee, and he went down. She didn't stop, grabbed his gun from his hand and shot the second man before he could react. The third man fired at her and missed. She didn't miss. He dropped. Hale's horse reared. Jesus Christ! Li Mei turned the gun on him. Her hands were steady now. Everything was clear and cold and simple. Get down, she said. You wouldn't... I've killed 4 men today. What's 1 more? Hale dismounted slowly, hands raised. Easy. Let's talk about this. Nothing to talk about. She glanced at Caleb. He was conscious, watching her with something like awe. Can you stand? Think so. He got to his feet slowly, one hand pressed to his shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers. How bad? She asked. Been worse. Liar. He almost smiled. Yeah. Hale cleared his throat. This doesn't end here. You know that, right? I've got more men. I've got money. I've got the law. You've got nothing, Li Mei said. Look around. Your men are dead or running. Your plan failed. You're standing in the dirt with a gun pointed at your head. She stepped closer. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to get on your horse and leave, and you're never coming back. Or what? Or I kill you, right here, right now. She thumbed back the hammer. Your choice. Hale's face went pale. You're bluffing. Am I? She let the question hang in the air. I came to this country with nothing. I survived things that would have broken you. I married a stranger and learned to shoot in 3 weeks. I just fought off 9 men and burned down my own barn. She met his eyes. Do I look like I'm bluffing? For a long moment, nobody moved. The only sounds were the crackling of fire and the distant cries of wounded men. Then Hale slowly lowered his hands. This isn't over. Yes, it is. Caleb's voice was rough but firm. Because if you come back, we'll kill you. And if you send more men, we'll kill them too. And eventually someone's going to ask questions about why so many people keep dying on your land deals. He took a step forward, swaying slightly. You're done here, Hale. Accept it. Hale looked between them. A woman half his size holding a gun like she knew how to use it, and a wounded man who wouldn't stay down. Whatever he saw in their faces made him believe them. He mounted his horse without another word and rode away. Li Mei didn't lower the gun until he was out of sight. Then her legs gave out and she sat down hard in the dirt. The adrenaline was draining away, leaving nothing but pain and exhaustion and the shakes. Caleb limped over and sat beside her. His face was gray, his breathing shallow. You're bleeding, she said. So are you. She looked down. Her shirt was torn, blood seeping from a gash on her arm she didn't remember getting. Her ribs screamed every time she breathed. Her face felt swollen where she'd been hit. We look like hell, she said. Yeah. He leaned against her, and she could feel him trembling. But we're alive. Barely. Still counts. They sat there in the dirt and the smoke and watched the barn burn. Li Mei knew they should move, should check on the wounded, should put out the fire spreading toward the house. But she couldn't make herself stand up. Not yet. You saved my life, Caleb said quietly. You saved mine first. Pretty sure we're even now. Pretty sure we're way past keeping score. He laughed, then winced and grabbed his shoulder. Don't make me laugh. Hurts too much. Sorry. No, you're not. She smiled despite everything, despite the pain and the bodies and the destruction. No, I'm not. A horse whinnied nearby, one of the attacker's horses, spooked but unharmed. Li Mei forced herself to stand, ignoring the protests from her ribs. She caught the horse and led it back to Caleb. We need to get you to a doctor, she said. Nearest one's in town. Then we go to town. They won't. I don't care what they will or won't do. You're bleeding and you need help. She helped him onto the horse, then climbed up behind him. Hold on. The ride to town took 30 minutes that felt like hours. Caleb's breathing got worse, his body going heavier against her. She kept talking to him, forcing him to stay conscious. Remember that first meal I cooked? She said. You said it was good. Was good. You were lying. The biscuits were hard as rocks. Still better than mine. Everything's better than yours. He made a sound that might have been a laugh. Fair. Stay with me, Caleb. Trying. Try harder. They rode into Silver Creek just past noon. People stopped and stared. At the blood. At Li Mei's torn clothes and swelling face. At Caleb barely staying upright in the saddle. She stopped in front of the doctor's office and half-carried Caleb inside. Doc Williams looked up from his desk, eyes widening. What in the name of gunshot? Li Mei said. Left shoulder. He's losing blood. Put him on the table. Williams was already moving, grabbing supplies. What happened? Victor Hale happened. Williams froze. Hale did this? His men. Hale ran when it got too expensive. She helped Caleb onto the examination table. His face was white, lips bloodless. Williams cut away the shirt and examined the wound. Bullet went through. That's good. Lots of blood, but no major vessels hit. He glanced at Li Mei. You should sit down. You look ready to fall over. I'm fine. You're not. Sit. She sat. Her legs gave out the moment her weight left them. Williams worked fast, cleaning the wound, stitching, bandaging. Caleb groaned once but didn't cry out. Li Mei watched his face, willing him to stay conscious, to keep breathing, to not leave her alone in this godforsaken place. When Williams finished, he stepped back. He'll live. Needs rest, clean bandages, no heavy lifting for at least a month. He turned to Li Mei. Now you. Don't say fine. I've got eyes. He examined her ribs, gentle despite his gruff manner. Cracked, not broken. You'll heal, but it'll hurt like hell for a few weeks. He cleaned the gash on her arm and bandaged it. That face will bruise up nice tomorrow. Thanks, she said dryly. Don't mention it. He washed his hands. Hale's not going to let this go, you know. He'll come back. No, he won't. You sound sure. I am. William studied her for a moment. What happened out there? We fought, we won. He left. She met his eyes. And if he's smart, he'll stay gone. And if he's not, then we'll kill him. The bluntness of it hung in the air. William shook his head slowly. You're either the bravest woman I've ever met or the craziest. Can it be both? He almost smiled. I suppose it can. They stayed in town overnight. Williams insisted, said Caleb needed monitoring. Li Mei didn't argue. She was too tired to ride back, too sore to do much besides sit in the chair next to Caleb's bed and watch him sleep. Around midnight, he woke up, looked around, confused, then saw her. Hey, he said. His voice was rough. Hey yourself. We alive? Seems like it. Good. He tried to sit up and failed. What happened? You got shot. I got you to town. Doctor fixed you up. She poured him water from the pitcher on the bedside table. Drink. He drank, then lay back. The ranch? Barn's gone. House is damaged but standing. We can fix it. Hale? Gone. For now. He nodded slowly, processing. You faced him down. We both did. No, you did. I was bleeding in the dirt. He looked at her. I watched you, Li Mei. Watched you take on 3 men and win. Watched you make Hale back down without firing a shot. His voice cracked. You didn't need me at all. That's not true. It is, and it's... He stopped, searching for words. I thought I was protecting you. Thought that was my job. But you don't need protecting. You never did. She took his hand. Maybe I don't need it, but I want it. There's a difference. Is there? Yes. She squeezed his fingers. Need is about survival. Want is about choice. I choose you, Caleb. I choose this. Even knowing how hard it is, how much it costs. She met his eyes. Do you choose me? He was quiet for a long time, then, every day, every single day. Something loosened in her chest, a knot she'd been carrying since the day she stepped off that stagecoach. Maybe longer, maybe her whole life. Then we're even, she said. He smiled, real and warm and tired. Yeah, we are. She stayed beside him until he fell back asleep. Then she let herself close her eyes, just for a moment. When she woke, the sun was streaming through the window, and someone was knocking on the door. Williams opened it. Marshal Grady stood there, hat in hand. Morning, Doc. Heard you had patients. 2 of them. What do you want, Grady? Just to talk. Grady's eyes found Li Mei. About what happened yesterday. She sat up straighter, ignoring the pain in her ribs. What about it? 9 men rode out to the Rourke Ranch. 4 came back. 5 are dead. Grady stepped inside. That's a lot of bodies, ma'am. Self-defense. I believe you. Problem is, Victor Hale's telling a different story. Says you and Caleb ambushed his men, murdered them in cold blood. That's a lie. I know it is, but he's got lawyers, money, and the governor's ear. Grady looked genuinely sorry. I can't protect you from this. Caleb sat up slowly, face going hard despite the pain. So what? You're here to arrest us? No, I'm here to tell you to leave. Grady held up a hand before either of them could argue. Listen, Hale's pushing the territorial court to issue warrants. Once they do, I'll have to bring you in. And once you're in custody, I can't guarantee your safety." "We're not running," Li Mei said. "Then you're fools." Grady's voice rose. "He'll kill you. Maybe not himself, but he'll make sure it happens. You'll disappear on the way to trial, or there'll be a convenient accident, or—" "We're not running," Caleb repeated. Grady threw up his hands. "Fine. Get yourselves killed. I tried." He turned to leave, then stopped. "For what it's worth, I hope you prove me wrong." He left. The room went quiet. Williams broke the silence. "He's not wrong, you know. Hale's connected. He could make you disappear." "Let him try," Li Mei said. "You really willing to die for this?" She looked at Caleb. He looked back. Something passed between them, understanding, acceptance, the weight of a choice made together. "Yes," she said. "We are." William shook his head. "Then you're both crazy. But I admire the hell out of you for it." He grabbed his coat. "I'll spread the word about what really happened. Can't promise it'll help, but it's something." After he left, Li Mei and Caleb sat in silence. "We should plan," she said finally. "Plan what?" "What comes next? Hale's not done. The law's coming. We need to be ready. Or we could leave, like Grady said." She looked at him sharply. "You want to run?" "No, but I want you safe more than I want to be right." He took her hand. "We've lost the barn. We've got a burned house, dead men in our yard, and a target on our backs. Maybe this is a fight we can't win. We won yesterday. Yesterday was different. Yesterday was about survival. Tomorrow's about everything that comes after." His grip tightened. "I don't want you dying for my land. It's not just your land anymore, it's ours." She stood, wincing at the pain. "And I'm not dying. Neither are you. We're going to go home, rebuild what burned, and make them come to us if they want another fight. And if they do, then we fight again, and we keep fighting until they stop coming." She pulled him to his feet. "That's what survival looks like. Not running, not hiding, standing your ground and making them regret ever pushing you in the first place." He stared at her, and she saw the moment he decided, saw the fear give way to something harder, something that looked like hope. "All right, he said. "We fight." They left town at sunup, Caleb riding slow and careful, Li Mei watching the road behind them for followers. But no one came. Maybe Hale was regrouping. Maybe he was planning something worse. Didn't matter. They'd be ready. When they crested the rise and saw the ranch, Li Mei's chest tightened. The barn was gone, just charred timbers and ash. The house stood but damaged, windows broken, porch burned. Bodies still lay in the yard where they'd fallen. It looked like a battlefield, because it was, but it was still home. They dismounted and stood side by side, surveying the damage. "Where do we start?" Caleb asked. Li Mei thought about it, about everything they'd lost and everything they'd gained, about the people who'd run and the ones who'd stayed, about the choice to fight when fighting seemed impossible. "We bury the dead," she said. "Then we rebuild." He nodded. Together. Together. They got to work. Morning came too early. Li Mei woke to sunlight cutting through the window and pain radiating from her ribs with every breath. Caleb was already awake, sitting up against the headboard, staring at nothing. "You sleep at all?" she asked. "Some." He didn't look at her. Kept seeing it. The fight. Mrs. Sharp. All of it. She understood. She'd had her own nightmares. Hale's gun pointed at her face, Caleb bleeding on the porch, the sound of bones breaking. She pushed herself up slowly, biting back a groan. "We should go back to the ranch," she said. "You need to rest." "So do you, but we can't do it here." He finally looked at her. "Why not?" "Because that place is ours, and I'm not letting what happened yesterday take that away from us." Something shifted in his expression, a hardness softening, walls coming down. He nodded. "All right, let's go home." Mrs. Chen tried to stop them at the door. "You need another day at least, maybe 2. We'll manage," Li Mei said. "Stubborn fool, both of you." But Mrs. Chen handed her a pouch of herbs. "For the pain." Brew it as tea 3 times a day, and if those ribs get worse, you come back immediately. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just don't die stupidly. The ride back was slow. Grady had lent them his wagon, and every rut in the road sent fresh agony through Lee May's chest. Caleb drove one-handed, his bandaged arm held close to his body. They didn't talk much. What was there to say? The ranch appeared over the rise, looking smaller than Lee May remembered, more vulnerable. The yard was still a mess. Dried blood in the dirt, bullet holes in the porch railing, scorch marks where someone's lantern had broken. But the house stood. The barn stood. They stood. Caleb helped her down from the wagon, and they walked to the porch together. At the top step, Lee May stopped. "What's wrong?" Caleb asked. "Nothing. She looked at the door, the place where she'd been thrown down, where she'd thought she might die. "Give me a second." He waited while she breathed through it. Then she stepped across the threshold. Inside, everything was exactly as they'd left it. Coffee cups on the table, Caleb's rifle propped against the wall, her shawl hanging on a peg by the door. Ordinary things, made strange by what had happened around them. "I'll clean up outside, Caleb said. "You should rest." "I'll help." "Lee May, I said I'll help." They spent the afternoon putting things right. Caleb dragged the bodies to a spot beyond the property line and buried them in unmarked graves. Lee May swept blood from the porch, collected spent shell casings, gathered broken wood for kindling. Every movement hurt, but she kept working. Stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant remembering. By evening, the yard looked almost normal. You had to know where to look to see the damage. Bullet scars in the barn door, a broken fence post, dirt disturbed where men had fallen. They ate a cold supper because neither of them had the energy to cook. Bread and cheese and water. It tasted like nothing. "People will come," Caleb said eventually, "to see if we're alive, to ask questions. Let them come. They might not be friendly." Hale had friends in town. Business partners. Then we'll deal with that too. She set down her cup. "I'm tired of being afraid of what people think. You've never been afraid of that, haven't I?" She looked at him. "I spent my whole life trying to be small enough, quiet enough, invisible enough that people would just leave me alone. It never worked, so I'm done." Caleb reached across the table and took her hand. His palm was rough, familiar. "For what it's worth, I'm glad you're not invisible. Only took getting shot at for you to notice." He almost smiled. "I noticed before that, just didn't know what to do about it. And now? Now I'm figuring it out." That night they slept in the same bed. Not out of passion or romance, but because neither wanted to be alone. Caleb lay on his back, arm in a sling, staring at the ceiling. Lee May curled on her side, careful of her ribs, listening to him breathe. "You awake?" she asked. "Yeah." "What are you thinking about?" "Everything, nothing." He paused. "What happens next?" "What do you want to happen?" "I don't know. I thought I did. Thought I'd just work the ranch until I died and that would be enough. But now," he stopped. "Now? Now I want more than that." She waited, giving him space to say it or not say it. "I want mornings where I'm not alone," he said quietly. "I want someone to talk to who actually talks back. I want—" His voice roughened. "I want you. Not because of some contract or arrangement, just because." Lee May's chest tightened, and it had nothing to do with broken ribs. "Just because?" "Yeah, that's not very romantic." "I'm not very romantic." "No, you're really not." She reached out and found his hand in the dark. "But I want those things too." They fell asleep like that, fingers intertwined, two damaged people finding something whole in each other. The visitors started coming 3 days later. First was Tom Sharp. He rode up alone, thin and hollow-eyed, looking 10 years older than when Lee May had seen him last. Caleb met him in the yard. "I heard what happened," Tom said. "Heard you stood and fought. Didn't have much choice. We all had a choice. I ran. You didn't." Tom looked at the ground. "I came to say I'm sorry For leaving. For not helping when you needed it. You had kids to protect, nothing to apologize for. Still feels wrong. Tom glanced toward the house, saw Li Mei standing in the doorway. Tell your wife I'm sorry too. For not being braver. Tell her yourself. Tom approached slowly, hat in his hands. Mrs. Rourke. Li Mei. Just Li Mei. He nodded. I wanted to say thank you for what you did, for standing when the rest of us couldn't. His voice cracked. My kids are alive because of people like you, and my wife. He stopped, composed himself. She'd have been glad someone finally put Hale in his place. Li Mei didn't know what to say, so she just nodded. Tom left, but others came after. The O'Connells, Hendricks, who'd come back from Colorado because his daughter's husband was a drunk, and he'd rather take his chances with Hale than live under that roof. Families Li Mei had never met who'd heard the story and wanted to see for themselves. Word had spread through the valley like wildfire. The Chinese woman and the stubborn rancher who'd beaten Victor Hale. Some people came out of gratitude, others out of curiosity. A few came because they wanted to see if the story was real or just talk. Not everyone was friendly. Mrs. Patterson from the general store showed up with her husband, both looking grim. We need to discuss what happened, Mr. Patterson said. Not much to discuss, Caleb replied. Hale tried to take our land. We stopped him. You killed 3 men. 3 men who were trying to kill us. Still, there's talk in town. People saying you went too far. That you should have let the law handle it. The law wasn't here. Grady said, Grady showed up after everything was done. We fought alone. Caleb's voice was flat. If you've got a problem with how we survived, you're welcome to leave. Mrs. Patterson spoke up, her voice tight. It's not about surviving, it's about what kind of people you are. What kind of example you're setting. Li Mei stepped forward. What kind of example? The kind where we don't let ourselves be murdered? Where we fight for what's ours? You're a foreigner. You don't understand how things work here. I understand just fine. Hale tried to take everything from us, and we stopped him. If that bothers you, that says more about you than it does about us. Mrs. Patterson's face flushed. You're not welcome in my store. Wasn't planning on coming back. The Pattersons left in a huff, and Caleb let out a long breath. That could have gone better. Could have gone worse, too. They're going to turn people against us. Some people, not all. Li Mei watched the wagon disappear down the road. The ones who matter will understand. She was right. Over the next week, others came, not to judge, but to help. Hendricks showed up with lumber to repair the barn. The O'Connells brought food. Even Marshal Grady stopped by with news. Hale sold everything, he said, sitting at their table with coffee. Took whatever money he could get and disappeared. Last anyone saw, he was heading east. Good riddance, Caleb said. His business partners aren't happy. They're trying to figure out who to blame. They can blame him. They're blaming you, saying you drove away progress, cost them money. Grady shrugged. Just thought you should know. After he left, Li Mei found Caleb standing on the porch, staring out at the land. They'll keep coming, he said. One way or another. Men like Hale's partners always do. Then we'll keep fighting. For how long? As long as it takes. She moved beside him. This is ours, Caleb. No one gets to take it away. He looked at her, and something in his expression softened. When did you get so damn stubborn? I learned from the best. The ranch slowly came back to life. Caleb worked despite his injuries, fixing fences and tending livestock. Li Mei did what she could with broken ribs, cooking, mending, managing the things that didn't require heavy lifting. They fell into a rhythm, different from before but no less real. And somewhere in the routine of ordinary days, something shifted between them. It wasn't dramatic, no grand declarations or sweeping gestures, just small moments. Caleb bringing her coffee in the morning without being asked. Li Mei sitting with him in the evenings while he worked on repairs, not talking, just being. The way they moved around each other in the kitchen, learning each other's patterns. One night, 2 weeks after the fight, Caleb came in from the barn and found Li Mei struggling to reach a pot on the high shelf. He came up behind her and got it down. Thanks, she said. He didn't move away, just stood there, close enough that she could feel the heat of him. "Li Mei," he said. "Yeah?" "I need to tell you something." She turned to face him. "What?" He seemed to be working up to something, wrestling with words that didn't come easy. "When I sent for a mail-order bride, I thought I was just getting help around the ranch. Someone to cook and clean, a business arrangement. I know. Let me finish." He took a breath. "I didn't expect you. Didn't expect someone who'd stand and fight, someone who'd—" He stopped, started again. "You changed everything. Caleb, I'm not good at this. Talking about feelings, saying the right things, but I need you to know—" His voice dropped. "I love you. Not because of what you do or how you help, just because of who you are." The words hung in the air between them. Li Mei felt her throat tighten. "You don't have to say anything back," Caleb continued quickly. "I just needed you to know, in case something happens, in case—" She kissed him. Not gentle this time, not careful. She kissed him like she meant it, like she'd been wanting to for weeks, and finally had permission. When they pulled apart, both were breathing hard. "I love you too," she said, "you stubborn, impossible man." But he smiled, a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. "Impossible, huh? The worst. And you love me anyway. Apparently I have terrible taste." He laughed and pulled her close, mindful of her ribs. They stood like that in the kitchen, holding each other while dinner burned on the stove and the sun set outside. For the first time in longer than either could remember, the future felt like something worth looking forward to. But peace, Li Mei learned, never lasted long. 3 weeks after this fight, riders came again. But these weren't Hale's men. These were ranchers, families who'd fled, now returning. The Morrisons, the O'Connells, even the Sharps, Tom looking determined despite the grief still carved into his face. They gathered in Caleb's yard, a dozen people on horseback, and Caleb came out to meet them with Li Mei at his side. "We want to talk," Tom said, "about rebuilding." "Rebuilding what?" "The valley, our homes, our lives." Tom dismounted, and others followed. "Hale's gone. His partners are selling off what's left. This is our chance to take back what we lost." "And you need us for what?" Caleb asked. "We need someone to lead. Someone who proved they won't back down." Tom looked at Li Mei, then back to Caleb. "We need you." Caleb shook his head. "I'm not a leader. You stood when everyone else ran. That makes you a leader, whether you like it or not. I didn't stand alone." "We know. That's why we're asking both of you." Tom's voice was earnest. "Help us organize. Help us make sure what happened doesn't happen again. We'll pool resources, watch out for each other, but we need someone to coordinate it all." Li Mei felt Caleb tense beside her. She knew what he was thinking, that leadership meant responsibility, and responsibility meant more people to protect, more people who could get hurt. But she also knew something else. They'd survived by standing together. Maybe that was the answer, not isolation, but community. She squeezed his hand. He looked at her and she nodded. "All right, Caleb said. "We'll help. But I'm not making promises I can't keep." "Fair enough." They spent the afternoon planning. Tom had already done the groundwork, talked to families, figured out who wanted to come back and who needed help rebuilding. The O'Connells had contacts in Rawlins who could supply lumber. Hendricks knew a lawyer who could help with land titles. Li Mei listened mostly, but when they started talking about security, she spoke up. "We need to watch the roads. Set up a rotation so someone's always keeping an eye out." "For what?" Mrs. Morrison asked. "For anyone trying what Hale did. Next time, we need warning before they're on our doorsteps." "You think there'll be a next time?" "Maybe, maybe not, but I'd rather be ready." They agreed. By evening, they had the outline of a plan. Not perfect, but a start. After everyone left, Caleb and Li Mei sat on the porch, exhausted. "You know what we just signed up for?" Caleb asked. "More work, more responsibility, more people counting on us." "You sound thrilled." "I'm not, but it's the right thing to do." He looked at her. "You really believe that?" "I do. We proved something when we stood against Hale. Now we have to prove we can build something better." She leaned against him. "Besides, you're good at this." "At what?" leading, protecting, making people feel safe. I don't feel like a leader. Leaders rarely do. Over the next month, the valley transformed. Families returned. Houses went up. Fields were cleared and planted. What had been a dying collection of isolated ranches became something closer to a community. Caleb organized work parties, groups of men and women helping each other rebuild, rotating through properties so everyone got help. Lee May coordinated supplies, kept track of who needed what, mediated disputes when they arose. It wasn't easy. People argued. Resources were tight. Some families struggled more than others. But slowly, bit by bit, the valley came back to life. And with that life came a shift in how people saw Lee May. It started small. Mrs. O'Connell asking her advice on preserving vegetables. Tom Sharp's kids running up to show her a drawing. Hendricks tipping his hat when he passed. Then one day at the general store, a new one, run by a family from Kansas, a woman Lee May had never met smiled at her. "You're Mrs. Rourke, aren't you?" "Yes." "I wanted to thank you. My husband and we heard what happened with Hale. Hearing that story is what gave us the courage to come out here and start fresh." The woman extended her hand. "I'm Margaret Walsh." Lee May shook it, surprised. "Thank you, I'm glad. My daughter talks about you constantly, says you're the bravest woman in the territory." "I'm not." "Don't argue, just accept the compliment." Margaret smiled. "It's rare to see a woman who fights for what's hers. You're an inspiration." After Margaret left, Lee May stood in the store, holding her basket, trying to process what had just happened. She'd gone from being the unwanted foreigner to being an inspiration. It didn't feel real. But when she mentioned it to Caleb that night, he just nodded. "People see what you did. They respect it. They should respect you. You're the one who refused to sell. And you're the one who stood beside me, who fought, who came up with half our strategy." He pulled her close. "Don't minimize that. I'm not used to people looking at me like I matter." "Then get used to it, because you do." The community grew. Every week brought new faces, families drawn by word of mouth, by stories of the valley where people stood together. They built a schoolhouse, started talking about a church, though the denominations couldn't agree on which kind. Even talked about petitioning for a proper sheriff instead of relying on Marshal Grady riding out from 2 towns over. Through it all, Caleb and Lee May remained at the center. Not because they wanted power, but because people trusted them. Came to them with problems, asked their advice, looked to them as an example of what partnership could be. And their own partnership deepened. They learned each other's rhythms, fears, hopes, learned how to fight without cruelty, how to apologize without resentment, how to love without losing themselves. One evening, 4 months after the fight with Hale, Lee May found Caleb in the barn, working on a new saddle. "We got a letter," she said. "From who?" "Tom Sharp. He's getting remarried. Wants us at the wedding." Caleb set down his tools. "That's good. He deserves some happiness." "He does." She sat down on a hay bale. "He asked if you'd stand with him, as his best man." "He what?" "Said you're the closest thing he has to family out here. Said if it wasn't for us, he wouldn't have had the courage to start over." Caleb looked stunned. "I barely know him." "You know him well enough. You helped rebuild his barn. You watched his kids when he needed to ride into town. You taught his son how to rope a calf." She smiled. "Whether you realize it or not, you've become important to these people. I was just helping. That's what makes it matter." The wedding was small but joyful. Tom married a widow from Rawlins, a strong woman with kind eyes who loved his kids like they were her own. The whole valley turned out, bringing food and music and laughter. Lee May stood with the other women, watching Caleb stand awkwardly next to Tom at the front. He looked uncomfortable in his good shirt, but he was smiling, really smiling. "Your husband's a good man," Margaret Walsh said beside her. "He is. And you're a good woman. Perfect match, if you ask me." Lee May thought about that, about how they'd started, a transaction, a contract, 2 lonely people making a practical arrangement, about where they were now, partners, lovers, the foundation that others built on. "Yeah," she said. "Ah, me, cher Tashi," she said. "I think we are." After the ceremony, there was dancing. Caleb claimed he didn't know how, but Li Mei pulled him into it anyway. They stumbled through a waltz, stepping on each other's feet, laughing. "I'm terrible at this," he said. "I know. It's endearing." "Is it?" "No. But I love you anyway." He spun her, badly, and she nearly fell. He caught her, and they stood there in the middle of the dance floor, holding each other while other couples moved around them. "I want to marry you," he said suddenly. Li Mei blinked. "We're already married." That was a contract, a piece of paper. He looked down at her, serious. "I want to marry you for real, because I choose you, because I can't imagine my life without you in it." Her throat tightened. "Caleb, you don't have to answer now, just think about it." "I don't need to think about it." She reached up and touched his face. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." They married again 2 weeks later in front of the whole community. Not in a church, they still hadn't built one, but outside under the wide sky, with the land they'd fought for spread out around them. Marshall Grady officiated, reading from a book he'd borrowed from someone's grandmother. Tom and his new wife stood as witnesses. The Valley families gathered in a loose circle, witness to a promise being remade. "Do you, Caleb Rourke, take this woman to be your wife?" Grady asked. "I do." "Do you, Li Mei, take this man to be your husband?" "I do." "Then, by the power vested in me by the territory, I pronounce you husband and wife, again." Grady grinned. "You may kiss your bride. Again." Caleb did, and the crowd cheered. Afterward, there was food and music. Someone had brought a fiddle. Children ran between tables, laughing. The sun set in shades of gold and orange, painting everything in warm light. Li Mei stood at the edge of it all, watching her community, because that's what it was now, hers as much as anyone's, celebrate. She thought about the girl who'd stepped off a stagecoach months ago, scared and alone, expecting nothing. That girl was gone. In her place was a woman who'd fought for her life, her land, her love. A woman who'd been broken and put herself back together stronger. Caleb came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "What are you thinking about?" "How far we've come." "We have come far, haven't we?" "Yeah." She leaned back against him. "Think it'll last?" "What, this?" He gestured at the celebration. "Maybe. Maybe not. But we'll be here either way." "Promise?" "Promise." They stood like that as the evening deepened into night, as stars appeared overhead, as their community danced and laughed and lived. Two people who'd survived the worst and found something better on the other side. Not perfection. Life was never perfect. But something real, something earned, something worth protecting. And when the last guests finally left and they walked back to their house, their home, Li Mei realized she was exactly where she wanted to be. Not because it was easy, but because it was theirs. The journey to Oregon took 6 weeks, and it wasn't the romantic adventure Li Mei had half hoped it might be. The wagon broke an axle outside of Boise. They lost a horse to colic in the Blue Mountains. Twice they got turned around and had to backtrack, wasting days. And somewhere in the high desert, Li Mei got sick. Fever, chills, a cough that rattled in her chest and wouldn't let go. Caleb found a doctor in a town so small it didn't have a name, just a crossroads and a general store. The doctor was old, half-blind, and smelled like whiskey, but he knew his business. "Pneumonia?" he said, after listening to Li Mei's lungs. "Not bad yet, but it will be if you keep traveling." "How long?" Caleb asked. 2 weeks, maybe 3. She needs rest, warmth, and medicine I don't have enough of to sell you." Caleb paid him anyway, bought what little he could, and found them a room above a saloon that charged too much and provided too little. For 10 days, Li Mei drifted in and out of fever dreams while Caleb sat beside her, wiping her forehead with cool cloths and forcing water down her throat. On the worst night, when her fever spiked and she started shaking so hard the bed frame rattled, Caleb held her and whispered things he'd never said out loud before. Promises he wasn't sure he could keep. Bargains with forces he didn't believe in. She didn't remember any of it later, and he never told her. When the fever finally broke, Li Mei woke to find him asleep in the chair next to the bed, head tilted back at an angle that would give him a hell of a neck ache. His face was gaunt, unshaven, exhausted. "Caleb," she croaked. He jerked awake, nearly fell out of the chair. "You're awake." "How long?" 10 days. "We should keep moving." "You can't even sit up." She tried anyway, made it halfway before her arms gave out. He caught her, eased her back down. "Stubborn woman," he muttered. "Stubborn man," she shot back, but her voice had no strength behind it. He smiled, and it was the first real smile she'd seen from him in days. "Yeah, we're a matched set." It took another week before she could travel again, and even then Caleb insisted on short days and frequent stops. Li Mei chafed at the slow pace, but she also knew he was right. Her body wasn't ready for hard travel. They reached the Willamette Valley in late autumn, when the leaves were turning and the air smelled like rain and rich earth. The land was everything Caleb had heard, green, fertile, threaded with rivers and creeks. Nothing like the dust-blown plains they'd left behind. They spent 3 days riding through the valley, looking at available parcels. Some were too expensive. Some were too isolated. One had good land, but a terrible house. Another had a perfect house, but the soil was poor. On the 4th day they found it. The property sat in a bend of a creek, maybe 200 acres of mixed forest and meadow. The house was small but sound, built by someone who knew what they were doing. There was a barn, a smokehouse, a root cellar dug into the hillside. The previous owner had died with no heirs, and the bank was eager to sell. Caleb walked the property line while Li Mei explored the house. When they met back at the wagon, he was carrying a handful of soil. "It's good," he said. "Better than good. This land could grow anything." "The house needs work," Li Mei said. "But the bones are solid." They looked at each other. "We could make this work," Caleb said carefully. "We could." "You sure? It's not too late to keep looking." Li Mei turned, taking in the view, the creek winding through the trees, the mountains visible in the distance, the open sky that seemed bigger here than anywhere else. It wasn't Silver Creek. It would never be Silver Creek. But maybe that was the point. "I'm sure," she said. They bought the land for $3,200, keeping the rest for supplies and livestock. The day they signed the deed, Caleb stood on the porch of their new house and just breathed. "What?" Li Mei asked. "Nothing. Just, this is ours. Really ours. Nobody can take it away." "Not unless we let them." He pulled her close, careful of her still healing ribs. "I don't plan on letting them." The first winter was hard, harder than either of them expected. The house was drafty, and they spent weeks stuffing gaps with rags and old newspaper. The creek flooded in December, washing out part of the road and leaving them stranded for a week. And the isolation was real. Their nearest neighbor was 5 miles away, and the town was a 2-hour ride. But they learned. Caleb taught Li Mei how to trap rabbits and preserve meat. She taught him how to make their supplies stretch when money was tight. They argued about stupid things, how to stack firewood, whether to plant wheat or corn, whose turn it was to check the traps. But they also laughed more than they had in Silver Creek, touched more easily, fell into rhythms that felt natural instead of negotiated. One night in January, snow falling heavy outside, they sat by the fire after supper. Li Mei was mending one of Caleb's shirts, and he was oiling his boots. "You ever think about going back?" he asked suddenly. "To Silver Creek?" "To China." Li Mei paused mid-stitch. "Sometimes. I think about my grandmother, about the mountains, about the way food tasted there." She pulled the thread tight. "But I don't think I could. Too much has changed. I've changed." "You miss it?" "Parts of it, but I don't belong there anymore. Maybe I never did." She looked at him. "What about you? You miss Silver Creek?" "Less than I thought I would. I miss some people, miss the familiarity of it." He set the boot aside. "But I don't miss feeling trapped. Don't miss fighting every day just to keep what was mine." "Do you feel trapped here?" "No. Here feels like choosing instead of holding on." She nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. Spring came late but strong, and with it came work. They planted 40 acres, wheat, corn, vegetables. Bought chickens, 2 cows, a pig. Caleb repaired the barn while Li Mei fixed the fence line. They worked on to dusk, fell into bed exhausted, and woke to do it again. In May, a family moved onto the neighboring property, a couple with 3 kids and a baby on the way. The husband, Thomas, was friendly enough. His wife, Margaret, was cautious but not unkind. The kids were wild, loud, and constantly underfoot. Margaret came calling one afternoon with a basket of preserves and a shy smile. "Thought you might like these. Welcome to the valley, proper-like." Lee May invited her in, made tea, and they sat at the kitchen table talking about gardens and weather and the 100 small details of keeping a farm running. It wasn't friendship, not yet. But it was the beginning of something. Over the summer, more families settled nearby. A Swedish couple bought land to the south. A widow with 2 grown sons took over the Miller place to the west. Slowly, quietly, a community started to form. In late July, Thomas organized a barn raising for a new family that had arrived with nothing but a wagon and determination. Caleb and Lee May showed up at dawn with tools and food. By sunset, the frame was up and half the roof was on. Afterward, everyone gathered for supper. Long tables set up outside, food spread family style, kids running wild while adults talked and laughed. Lee May found herself sitting between Margaret and the Swedish woman, Anna, listening to them debate the best way to keep rabbits out of a garden. Caleb caught her eye from across the table and smiled. She smiled back. This was different than Silver Creek, different than anywhere she'd been. Here, nobody cared that her face didn't match theirs. Here, she was just Lee May Rourke, the woman who could outwork most men and had a sharp eye for fixing things. On the ride home that night, Caleb said, "That was nice." "It was." "You looked happy." "I was." Mom, she leaned against his shoulder. "Are you?" "Yeah, I really am." Autumn brought harvest, and with it the reality of whether their gamble had paid off. The crops came in better than expected, the wheat especially. After selling their surplus and paying their debts, they had money left over. Not a lot, but enough. "We could buy more livestock," Caleb said, counting the cash for the 3rd time. "Or fix the roof properly. Or both if we're careful." They compromised. Bought 2 more cows and enough shingles to patch the worst spots. It wasn't fancy, but it was progress. That winter was easier than the first. They knew what to expect now, knew how to prepare, and they had neighbors to check on during bad storms, people who checked on them in return. In February, Margaret's baby came. A girl, healthy and loud. Lee May helped with the delivery, doing what she'd seen her grandmother do years ago. When it was over and Margaret was resting with the baby in her arms, Thomas pulled Lee May aside. "Thank you," he said, voice rough. "The doctor couldn't make it through the snow. If you hadn't been here—" "But I was," Lee May interrupted. "That's what neighbors do." He nodded, shook her hand, and that was that. Word spread. When spring came and Anna's son broke his arm falling out of a tree, they called for Lee May. When the widow's well went bad and she needed help digging a new one, Caleb showed up with tools. Slowly, without planning it, they became the people others relied on. One evening in late March, sitting on their porch watching the sunset, Caleb said, "You realize what we've done, right?" "What?" "We've built a life here, a real one." Lee May considered that. A year and a half ago, she'd been a mail-order bride, arriving in a town that hated her. Now she had land, a husband who loved her, neighbors who respected her. It seemed impossible. "We have," she agreed. "Think it'll last?" "I don't know. Nothing lasts forever." She took his hand. "But I think we've got a good chance." He kissed her temple. "That's all we need." Summer came again, bringing heat and work and the slow satisfaction of things growing. Their second harvest was even better than the first. They paid off the last of their debts and started saving for things they wanted instead of things they needed. In August, Thomas and Margaret organized a dance in town. The whole valley turned out, farmers and shopkeepers, families and singles, old and young. Someone brought a fiddle, someone else a guitar. Tables groaned under the weight of food. Caleb was nervous. "I'm not good at this." "At what?" "Dancing, socializing, all of it. Then fake it, like I do." He laughed despite himself. "You're not faking." "I'm always faking. I just got good at it." She straightened his collar. "Come on, we don't have to stay long." They stayed until midnight. Caleb danced with her twice. stepping on her toes both times but making her laugh. Li Mei talked with Margaret and Anna, swapped recipes and gossip, and felt something settle in her chest that had been restless for years. On the way home, both of them pleasantly tired and full of food, Caleb said, "I think Sarah would have liked it here." It was the first time he'd mentioned her in months. Li Mei tensed slightly, unsure how to respond. "I think she would have liked you," he continued. "You would have been friends." "You think?" "Yeah, she always said I needed someone who'd call me on my bullshit. You do that better than anyone." He glanced at her. "I don't talk about her much anymore. Doesn't mean I forgot." "I know. But I'm not holding on the same way I was. Does that make sense?" "It makes perfect sense." Li Mei squeezed his hand. "She was part of your life. She helped make you who you are. But she's not your whole life. Not anymore. No, you are." The words hung in the warm night air, simple and true. "We're each other's," Li Mei said. "That's how it should be." They rode in comfortable silence the rest of the way home. The second winter passed easier than the first. Spring brought plans for expanding the house. They needed more space, room to grow. Caleb drew up plans for an addition, and Thomas agreed to help with the building in exchange for Caleb helping him clear land for a new field. In April, a letter arrived from Silver Creek. Li Mei recognized Marshall Grady's handwriting on the envelope. Caleb opened it at the kitchen table, read it silently, then passed it to her. The railroad had come through as promised. The town was growing, changing. Hale's properties had been sold off, divided among new owners. Some of the families who'd fled were coming back, and Marshall Grady had been elected mayor. "He wants to know if we'd ever consider visiting," Caleb said. "Would you?" He thought about it. "Maybe. Someday. But not yet." "Why not?" "Because I like where we are. I like who we are here." He stood, walked to the window. "In Silver Creek, I was the stubborn rancher who wouldn't sell, the widower who couldn't move on. Here, I'm just Caleb, the guy who knows how to fix a plow and makes halfway decent furniture." Li Mei joined him at the window. Outside, their land stretched green and growing. "And what am I here?" "You're Li Mei, the woman who can deliver a baby, shoot straight, and somehow make salt pork taste good." He wrapped his arms around her from behind. "The woman I love more than I thought I could love anyone." She leaned back against him, feeling the solid warmth of his chest, the steady beat of his heart. "We're doing okay, aren't we?" "Better than okay." "Even though we're still fixing things? Even though the roof leaks and the fence needs replacing and we're always one bad season away from trouble?" Especially because of that. Because we're building something real, not trying to hold on to something dead." He kissed the top of her head. "We're doing more than okay. We're doing good." Summer brought the addition to the house, 2 rooms and a proper porch that wrapped around the south side. Caleb did most of the heavy work, but Li Mei was there for every bit of it, handing him tools, holding boards steady, learning carpentry alongside him. When it was finished, they stood back and looked at their work. It wasn't perfect, the corners weren't quite square, and the porch floor had a slight slope. But it was solid, and it was theirs. "Not bad for amateurs," Caleb said. "Not bad at all." That night they christened the new porch, sitting in chairs Caleb had built, and drinking coffee as the sun set. The air smelled like sawdust and summer grass. "You know what I realized?" Li Mei said. "What?" "I'm not scared anymore. I used to wake up every morning afraid that someone would hurt me, that I'd lose everything, that I'd end up alone." She set her cup down. "I don't feel that anymore." "What do you feel?" "Safe, settled, like I finally found where I'm supposed to be." Caleb reached over, took her hand. "You know what I realized?" "Tell me." "I spent years thinking strength meant not needing anybody, meant standing alone no matter what." Ish. He looked at her. "But real strength is letting someone stand with you, is trusting them enough to be weak sometimes." "When have you been weak?" "When you were sick and I thought I'd lose you. When I didn't know how to fix the wagon and you figured it out. When I wake up at night and you're there, and I remember what it was like to sleep alone." His voice dropped. I'm weak for you all the time, and I'm not ashamed of it. Li Mei felt tears prick her eyes. I'm not ashamed either. They sat like that until the stars came out, two people who'd found each other in violence and chosen to build something gentle. The harvest that year was the best yet. Enough to pay for the addition, buy more livestock, and still have money to spare. At the community harvest dinner in October, Thomas stood up and made a toast. To neighbors who become family, he said, raising his glass. To land that provides, and to the people who make this valley a home. Everyone drank, and Li Mei felt warmth spread through her chest that had nothing to do with the cider. Afterward, Margaret pulled her aside. I heard you and Caleb talking about maybe taking in someone to help with the farm come spring. We've discussed it. Why? My cousin's daughter, she's 17, got no family to speak of. She's a hard worker, but she needs a place. Needs people who'll treat her right. Margaret looked uncomfortable. I know it's asking a lot, but I thought, send her our way, Li Mei interrupted. We'll give her a fair wage and a safe place to stay. Margaret's face flooded with relief. Thank you. You don't know what this means. But Li Mei did know. She remembered what it felt like to need a place, to need people who saw you as more than labor or burden. She remembered the desperation of signing a contract with a stranger because it was better than the alternative. If she could give someone else a different start, she would. The girl, her name was Emma, arrived in late November. Skinny, quiet, with eyes that darted around like a cornered animal. Li Mei recognized that look. Had worn it herself not so long ago. You'll sleep in the new room, Li Mei told her. Meals are at sunrise, noon, and sunset. You work hard. We treat you fair. You have questions, you ask. You have problems, you speak up. Understood? Emma nodded, not quite meeting her eyes. And Emma? Li Mei waited until the girl looked at her. You're safe here. Nobody's going to hurt you or take advantage. You have my word. Something in Emma's face shifted, like a door opening just a crack. Thank you, ma'am. Li Mei. Just Li Mei. Emma settled in quickly, proving herself capable and reliable. She was good with the animals, patient with the work, and slowly, week by week, she started to relax, started to smile, started to become someone other than the scared girl who'd first arrived. One evening in December, Li Mei found her in the barn, crying over a letter. What's wrong? Emma wiped her face quickly. Nothing. Sorry. I'm fine. You're not fine. Talk to me. The story came out in broken pieces. Emma's father had died when she was 12. Her mother remarried a man who saw Emma as an inconvenience. By 16, she was working as a maid for a family that barely paid her, treated her like property. She'd run as soon as she could. I thought I was the only one, Emma whispered. The only one who had to start over from nothing. Li Mei sat down next to her in the hay. You're not. I came here the same way, contract bride to a man I'd never met. Thought I was signing up for safety and found violence instead. Emma's eyes went wide. But you and Mr. Rourke, you're happy now. We are. But we weren't at first. We had to become happy, had to fight for it. Li Mei put her arm around the girl's shoulders. Starting over is hard. It hurts, and there's no guarantee it'll work out. But sometimes it does. Sometimes you find people who see you, really see you, and everything changes. Did someone see you? Caleb did, even when I didn't want him to. Emma was quiet for a moment. Do you think anyone will see me that way? I think if you let them, yes. But you have to let them. You have to believe you're worth seeing. I don't know if I do. Then start practicing, because you are. Emma leaned against her, and Li Mei held her while she cried out whatever poison she'd been carrying. That winter, something shifted in the house. It wasn't just Caleb and Li Mei anymore. It was three people learning to be a family in the messy, complicated way families actually work. Emma tested boundaries, pushed back, acted out in small ways. Li Mei and Caleb fumbled through it, made mistakes, apologized, tried again. By spring, Emma was laughing at Caleb's terrible jokes and helping Li Mei cook without being asked. She still had hard days, still carried scars, but she was healing. In April, a young man from town started calling on Emma. Nothing serious at first, just conversation at church and awkward visits to the house. Emma was terrified. "What if he's like my stepfather?" she asked Li Mei. "Then you'll know, and you'll walk away. But what if he's not? What if he's good and kind and sees you the way you deserve to be seen? How do I know the difference?" "You watch. You listen. You trust your instincts." Li Mei paused. "And you remember that you have a choice. You always have a choice." Emma nodded, but Li Mei could see the fear still there. The young man, his name was Peter, kept calling. He was patient, respectful, willing to sit on the porch and talk about nothing for hours. Caleb interrogated him the way a father would, asking pointed questions about his intentions and his character. After Peter left one evening, Caleb said, "He seems decent." "He does," Li Mei agreed. "Think she'll give him a chance?" "I think she's learning to trust again. That's the first step." By summer, Emma and Peter were courting properly. Li Mei watched them together and saw the careful way they moved around each other, two people who'd both been hurt, both learning to believe in something good. In August, Peter asked Emma to marry him. She said yes. The wedding was small, held on Caleb and Li Mei's land, with the whole valley in attendance. Emma wore a dress Li Mei had helped her make, and she glowed in a way that had nothing to do with the afternoon light. As Emma walked past to join Peter, she stopped and hugged Li Mei hard. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Li Mei's throat tightened. "Be happy. That's all the thanks I need." Watching Emma and Peter exchange vows, Caleb leaned close to Li Mei. "We did good with her." "We did." "Think we could do it again?" She looked at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we've got space. We've got resources. And there are a lot of people out there who need what we can give." He took her hand. "I'm not saying we turn into an orphanage, but maybe we keep our door open. Maybe we help who we can." Li Mei thought about the girl she'd been, desperate, alone, willing to sign her life away for a chance at something better. Thought about Emma, about all the others like them. "Yeah," she said, "I think we could do that." Over the next 3 years, 6 more people found their way to the Rourke farm. A Chinese boy fleeing persecution in Portland, a young widow with a baby and nowhere to go, a man who'd lost his leg in a logging accident and needed work he could do sitting down. Each one came broken in some way. Each one found space to heal. Not all of them stayed. Some moved on once they were strong enough. But they all left different than they'd arrived, stronger, more sure of themselves. The farm grew to accommodate. They added another room to the house, expanded the barn, brought in more livestock. It wasn't always easy. Money got tight, personalities clashed, problems arose that nobody had solutions for. But they worked through it. Li Mei became known throughout the valley as the woman who took in strays and turned them into family. Caleb was the quiet strength behind it all, teaching skills and offering stability. On a warm evening in late September, 5 years after they'd arrived in Oregon, Li Mei stood on the porch and looked out at the life they'd built. In the yard, 2 of their current residents, both young men learning to farm, were fixing a fence. In the garden, the widow was harvesting vegetables with her daughter, now 4 years old. From inside the house came the sound of laughter and someone playing a harmonica badly. Caleb came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. "Penny, for your thoughts." "Just thinking about how different this is from what I expected." "Better or worse?" "Different, but good." She leaned back against him. "I thought I was signing up for survival. Turned out I was signing up for a life." "We both were." She turned to face him. At 42, Caleb had more gray in his hair and deeper lines around his eyes, but he smiled more, laughed more, lived more. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked. "Taking me in? Fighting hail? Leaving Silver Creek?" "Not once." He cupped her face. "You saved my life, Li Mei. Not from bullets, from myself. From being alone and bitter until I died." "I didn't save you. We saved each other." "Yeah, I guess we did." They kissed on the porch while the sun set and the life they'd built hummed around them. It wasn't the life either of them had planned. It was better. That night, after everyone had gone to bed, Li Mei sat at the kitchen table writing a letter. Not to anyone in particular, just words she needed to get out. She wrote about being a mail-order bride, about arriving in a town that hated her, about fighting for land that wasn't even hers, about falling in love with a man who was supposed to be a transaction, about learning that strength wasn't standing alone but standing together. She wrote about Emma and Peter, about the others who'd come through their door, about the strange, beautiful family they'd built from broken pieces. When she finished, she didn't send the letter anywhere, just folded it and put it in a box with other things she wanted to remember: the contract she'd signed in San Francisco, a photograph of the Silver Creek Ranch, the knife her grandmother had given her. Evidence that she'd lived, that she'd survived, that she'd found something worth keeping. Caleb came downstairs, found her sitting in the dark. "Can't sleep?" he asked. "Just thinking." About? About how we're the lucky ones, how easily it could have gone different. He sat across from her. But it didn't. No, it didn't. She reached across the table, took his hand. "I'm glad I got on that stagecoach. Glad you were stubborn enough to stay. Glad we fought instead of ran." "Me too." He squeezed her hand. "Come to bed?" "In a minute." She sat alone for a while longer, listening to the house settle, to the sound of people breathing in other rooms. People who'd come here lost and found something they needed. She thought about the woman she'd been, arriving in Silver Creek scared and uncertain, expecting nothing good. That woman was gone, replaced by someone stronger, surer, more at peace. The journey had been hard, painful, full of violence and fear and moments where everything could have ended, but she'd made it. They'd made it. And in the making, they'd built something rare, a life full of purpose, a love built on respect and trust, a home that welcomed the broken and helped them heal. Lee May stood, turned off the lamp, and went upstairs to where Caleb was waiting. She climbed into bed next to him, and he pulled her close without waking. This was enough. This was everything. In the morning there would be work. There was always work. There would be problems to solve, people to help, a farm to run. But tonight, in this moment, there was just peace. Lee May closed her eyes and slept, surrounded by family she'd chosen and a love she'd earned. The dust of Silver Creek was long gone, blown away by time and distance. In its place was something green and growing, something built to last. And that, she thought as she drifted off, was all anyone could really ask for.